All right, thank you so much. Here the program still this morning on ITV. Now, in the month of October last year, Nigeria as a nation paid a very heavy, big price. Talking about the ENDSARS protest, the price that threatened our people, that threatened our togetherness as a nation, and of course that threatened the oneness that we all have as a nation. And for me, it's the very first time in my whole life that I saw a situation whereby Nigerians came out to protest against what they describe as bad governance. Now, if you recall, that protest started in the social media. As a matter of fact, it was said that sometime January last year, that was when a lot of people started receiving, some calls from concerned citizens to protest against what they call bad governance. And of course, in October last year, the ENDSARS protest became something that the whole world saw in Nigeria. Particularly on a certain day that the whole nation was thrown into a fiesta, permit me to use the word now, fiesta, because I was in Oluku that day. I was trapped here. I had to trek from this place to Ubowo, from Ubowo down to Ekehun Road. I made it in 2 days. It was a very big distance that I covered, and that's why I will never forget. Now, the protest that we know, has to do with people, that actually needs change in the way for them, the way things have been going in the country. And of course, it's all happened that it started with, trying to react against what they call police brutality. And of course, they made 5 demands known. Investigation of allegations of police misconduct and prosecution of the indicted. And also, we also understand that some of the demands surrounds compensation for victims of police brutality and release of arrested protesters, increase of police officers' salaries, and of course, the psychological evaluation of all disbanded SARS officers before the redeployment. Now, these were the 5-point agenda that people had in their minds, the protesters had in their mind. And of course, when the time for protest came, they went on the streets of Nigeria to protest. Now, in a very quick reaction to that, the federal government had to disband SARS, and a new outfit was replaced, known as was used to replace SARS, known as SWAT. But even at that, a lot of people were still not, satisfied. They went out to still say that they don't want anything under any coloration, and that took another time. Now, also as a reaction to that, the federal government had to instruct states to make sure that it set up a judicial panel of inquiry to inquire what the issues are. Now, I've been told that in Edo State here that that inquiry has been extended. Before now, I thought that they have completed their, sitting, and of course they have made their recommendations to our government. But we've been told that they've extended, their sitting. So in a couple of days to come, we're going to be having more of the sittings, because prior to this time, ITV followed all that happened in that sittings, and of course we also brought you whereby you saw people, complaining how they were brutalized by one police officer or the other, or what happened to them and all that. Now, to discuss all this today, as we look at the ENDSARS protest, let's look at the expectations on panel of inquiry, and also to also look at 5 months down. That was since October last year now, 5-6 months down the demands. How far has the government reacted to the demands of the protesters that came out that made the name ENDSARS protest? Well, to look at all this today, we are so privileged to have pharmacist Uyi Oriahi. He's a political analyst and also a public affairs analyst too. And we have Barrister Dennis Society, who incidentally was one of those that was very, very seen during the ENDSARS protest sitting in Government House. Gentlemen, you're welcome to this program this morning on ITV.
Thank you.
All right, we're also expecting Comrade Kola Edokwayi, a human rights activist who also was part of who is also part of the judicial inquiry panel. He's going to join us as we discuss on the show today. Now, gentlemen, as we set the foundation for this discussion today, now, what is, how do we really characterize the Judicial Panel of Inquiry. Let's characterize their findings and all that has been going on at the Panel of Inquiry. Pharmacist Oriaki.
Well, so far, the information that reached us was that as at a few weeks ago, about 2,500 petitions had landed on the tables of the various Judicial Panel of Inquiries across the states. Although at the earlier stage there were some states who could not also constitute a Judicial Panel of Inquiry. And in some states too, like Lagos, we saw the military people walking out of the panel because, walking out on the panel because they felt that investigations that were being made by the panel was moving within, outside its borders and all of that, and it almost brought a halt to what they were doing in Lagos. So far, like you said in those states, reports have not been submitted because panel is still sitting and all of that. What exactly will the panel seek to correct? Initiative was from the federal government, which mandated all states to put up a body like this to look at what has been going on. Recall that in 2017, there were already cries from the public against police brutality, especially from the SARS unit. And there had been calls to disband this unit. But why would the federal government wait for that long before they had to take action? They would never have taken any action if that mass protest across the country, especially in the southern part of the country, had not occurred. Then they decided that, oh, let us do this. Up until now, we do not know very well what the federal government, whether they are even monitoring the various panel of inquiries that they have set up. They have asked the state government to set up and getting feedback from them on what to do to assuage those who have been hurt and all of that. So we cannot even conclude right now that this is the progress that the Judicial Panel of Inquiry has made. We can only watch to see how the federal government will react in the course of time. So what do they really seek to correct? I want to come short of saying that this was just what they put in place to quickly address a situation that they know has gone out of hand. Are they really serious about this? But I know that in some states, serious actions have been taken, and even some persons have been compensated as we speak in some states. Yes, will the compensation, what will the compensation do to the attitude of our police officers who are accused of brutalizing our people here and there? You know, it goes deeper than just a Judicial Panel of Inquiry.
Now, Pharmacist, I think I want us to bring to mind that the Judicial Panel on Inquiry is actually not against the police officers. Because if you look at the demands of the ENDSARS protesters, there's an aspect that talks about increased salaries of the police. So I want us to look at it from that angle.
Oh, okay. Yes, you see, bad governance. One of the elements of bad governance is inability to take care of the various sectors, the institutions that make up a nation. And the police is a critical one, especially when you consider where we are at the moment, various insecurity situations, states of insecurity that we are experiencing as a nation. Yes, now that protest sought to make the public understand that probably part of the reason the police are engaged in such acts of brutality, intimidation, and oppression against the people they are supposed to protect is because they are not being well catered for. And that is true. To a very large extent, we know the condition of living of the average policeman is very appalling. And it is true for in some quarters they say that you cannot be living in that kind of situation, that kind of environment, and have a proper mental health. And all of these things will impinge on the way the police now relate to the public.
Okay. Now, Barrister then in society, you most times I see you on television when those sittings were on, and just like what you informed us that the sittings are still going on, that the state government has asked the panel to extend it. Now, how would you want to describe some of the progress made so far in this Judicial Panel of Inquiry?
For me, I honestly believe that the setting of the panel in those states was a very timely intervention, because the fact that people have an avenue to, for once, look into the eyes of their oppressors and complain wholeheartedly, for me was quite heartwarming, because I happen to be a part of the process. I've also had the opportunity of presenting cases and presenting victims of this brutality that we're talking about. And mind you, the brutality we're talking about here is not only from the police, from state actors and even non-state actors. We had a case of even a union member, who meted violence on some of the protesters, a union member, just like the protesters themselves. We brought that case before the panel because it was quite germane, because we wanted to also prove the point that we are not really against the police or the armed forces. They were even private individuals who took it upon themselves to perpetrate violence during the protests. And we wanted the government to also look at it and also bring about some recommendations that will foster such occurrences in the past, because people have a fundamental human right to protest, whether they like it or not, albeit peacefully. So no citizen have the monopoly of violence to prevent another citizen from protesting. That is one thing we wanted to establish by that case that was presented before the panel. So for me, I think the setting up of the panel is a laudable one, and it must be encouraged to hurriedly put together their recommendation and their report, so that people will not begin to suspect that this is just another hanky-panky, this is another a method to distract citizens from the main focal point of for which or reason why the panel was set up. So I want to strongly recommend even at this point that the panel was given 90 days to carry out this action, and the government by themselves stated that once the recommendations are made, they will implement within the next 14 days. We are seeing this. There's evidence of these statements and commitment there in the public. So the government must ensure that they stick to their own side of the bargain and not give the wrong side of the stick to the citizens, because they are very patient. They are waiting eagerly to see whether this panel report will also be swept under the carpet, whether there will be a committee that will be set up to bring out a white paper, and then another committee will be set up to bring out another review, and then it will now be in limbo. That is one of the things that the citizens are expecting. So I strongly believe that the panel has done a wonderful job so far. Even when instances where we had cases where the people were accused of perpetrating this kind of violence and brutality, they refused to show up, and the panel had to issue summons to them, even to the Commissioner of Police in Edo State. Issue summons that they should produce those police officers who were, mentioned by way of petitions to come and answer to their cases, because you must give them the right to, give them the opportunity to be heard, because that's the principle of fair hearing and justice. They must also be heard, and they were given the opportunity, ample time, opportunity to come and present their own side of the story, so that it's not as if the only people that were listening to were just the victim. Those who were also accused of victimization were also given the opportunity to come and testify and give their own version of the story, so that at the end of the day, the reports and recommendations of this panel will be robust enough to meet some of these needs and expectations of the ENDSARS protesters, and ensure that that protest of in October last year will not be in vain.
Okay, now Barrister Osaiti, now perhaps one of the greatest challenges that the panel has is the fact that some of the petitions that are brought before the panel now are petitions that have already been decided in court. You are a lawyer. I don't know, how would the panel go with this? I mean, for a case, a petition, if you like now, that has been decided in court or that is in court, can this panel go ahead on such petition?
Now, mind you, if, for example, maybe a victim was killed, probably by a police officer or somebody bearing firearm and all that, and probably the police officer in question has been tried through the court system and has been convicted. That is just one aspect. What the panel seek to do is another arm of justice, which is what we call reparation, compensation.
Yeah, but that may amount to double justice to a single.
Once somebody is convicted, what about the victim?
Restitution.
What happens to the victim? That is the question here. And that is where we think we must not begin to think of restorative justice as opposed to retributive justice. A justice that will take care of all the needs of all the persons in the society. So beyond just punishment, what about compensation? What about restitution? What about damages? So these are the issues that I believe this panel will be called upon to answer. Because we find out that, for example, the case I handled, a young man in Aochipoli who is currently at that time was just commenced his HND program, was shot, and that injury led to the amputation of his leg. As we speak, that young man bore the responsibility of treating himself and even pay for the surgery in Era Specialist Hospital. That young man just recently went viral on the internet, despite the fact that he now had, he's now an amputee, still went back to school and finished his examination. But does that put an end to his trauma? No. That's why this panel must, as a matter of urgency, make recommendation beyond the conviction, beyond punishment. The victim's interest must be put into consideration, like it's happening in the US. We victims of police brutality in the US, some of them end up suing the police, and they get so much in terms of compensation and damages awarded to them, even by the courts in the US. So that same sense of justice, we should call restorative justice, must be brought to bear in Nigeria. And I don't think that will not in any way amount to double jeopardy. Far from it.
Okay. Now, former Sister Oyi, perhaps you may want to look at it differently. That for some people, they begin to look at it that government seems not to be sincere. I mean, the inquiries are still on. The panels are still sitting across the country. But we understand that sometime, just about towards the end of last year or at the beginning of the year, whereby the accounts of some alleged protesters were asked to be frozen by the CBN. That directive was alleged to have come from the federal government, and not only that, these same protesters were also alleged to have been arrested. Now, for this kind of situation, where does it put us, as a nation? Because you talked about that the country should think about, restitutive, law. That's the way you put it now. So where does it put us as a nation, from a story?
Well, that particular incident you just mentioned is a pain to the hearts of many people, including myself. A government that had acted as if it wanted to bring to rest some of the hues and cries arising from police brutality across the nation, all of a sudden is witch hunting those who are thought to have been
meanwhile the allegations, these are allegations,
but you see they never came out to dispute it. They never came out to say no, they didn't do that. And those affected were those who participated very well in the protest. It seemed to me that somebody is talking from both sides of the mouth. The things in the heart. You will now begin to think, I think the state government has to do well to make this panel of inquiry very effective and ensure that the people get what they really need as a result of this brutality. Because the federal government may not have set up these panels, may not have ordered that this panel be set up in good faith. They only just wanted to see that a lot of those, those things that arose from the protest were quickly buried in order. Because
why do you say so?
It was gaining international, recognition. Attention was on it, especially with what happened in Lekki that day. And the international community were already beginning to think, oh, did this really happen? Did this really happen? Because the government felt that they were under some kind of pressure to quickly do something for the international community to see that, oh, we are addressing this issue, we are not insensitive, and that was set up. It turned out to be that we could utilize these panels to achieve certain things, just like a barrister has said, especially on the aspect of the justice, restorative justice. But it is not the state government. It is not the state government that ordered for these people to be, for their accounts to be blocked. It is the same federal government who ordered for it to be blocked. So that it was never in their mind to see that these people go unpunished. And it is like I mentioned before when I started that 2017 was when people started rising up against this spate of police brutality. Government kept quiet. People have been agitating. This SARS is not doing us any good. The people they were constituted to protect are the people that they are meeting out their anger and their fury against. And yet the government of the federation refused to do anything. But let me also tell you this. Because the police is an organ that is firmly in the control of the federal government. And it will bring us to discuss again what kind of security architecture we have in our nation, where the state governors are called chief security in their respective states, whereas they do not really have the full control of that police body. because conflicting orders can come to make the state government to render their orders ineffective. So now they are controlled by the federal government. Okay. And the federal government influences how people get into the police force. The federal government, we can say to an extent, does not even know the local needs of the people when it comes to policing.
No,
but
you cannot say
no,
so.
They don't know. They cannot know more than the state and the local government, the local needs of the people, because when you rejig the security architecture to ensure that persons you put in respective places are those who can be held accountable. When there are those that feel that they cannot be held accountable, why should they listen to local orders and commands from here when they can be called upon from Abuja to do certain things?
Okay. Now, Barrister Dennis, perhaps it's almost a situation whereby some people describe it as between the devil and the deep blue sea. Now, just like what you inform us, that the state government has asked more time. For most people, they may not be comfortable with this because I remember when this panel started sitting, we're told that there was going to be a time frame, that at most within the time frame before it elapses, people will start 90 days, and 90 days has since been completed. Now, where does this leave us now? Don't you think that people may begin to say that government is trying to buy more time, just like what pharmacists said earlier on, that it doesn't look like another situation whereby you just try to waste away the people's time with time they forget it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I can tell you for free, being an actor in that sector, that a lot of the views and cries from the public is that they sense the foul play. They can smell the rats, and they're beginning to suggest that the government appears not to be sincere, compared to states like Lagos states, that they are already implementing even the recommendation, even right during the sittings of the
were the states given the directive to implement the recommendations?
Yes. They were given 14 days.
No, the states.
Yes. The charge from the federal government of the states will set up this panel, let them sit within 90 days and implement the recommendation within 14 days.
All right. So if you say states,
states like Lagos is already taking the charge. They are really
of implementing the recommendations.
They have shown responsible leadership, in paying compensation to all those who were victims.
Okay, so when you say
in the same vein, the people in those states are also expecting the same level of performance and responsibility from the panel and the state government.
Yeah, because we need to get this thing straight. Yes. Now, this ENDSARS protest and the panel of inquiry, for most people, is a federal government thing. It's a federal government thing. So if you tell us that states were given the mandate to implement the recommendations, I think we should put it in the right perspective. So when we say that it appears government is trying to buy time, now, which of the government are we talking about? Are we talking about the state's government or the federal government?
We refer to both the state and the federal government because they both have responsibility to their citizens. And this is the government, when the states were ungovernable, who were at the receiving end? Not the state governors. So the states and the federal government are both CMS twins. They cannot be separated in this matter. As far as these issues are concerned, they both have equal and shared responsibility to their people. So the state government have some specific roles to play. For example, if you're talking about compensation, those who were victimized, are they not citizens of Edo states? They are. Those who were brutalized, are they not citizens of Edo states? If you pay the compensation, are you not paying your people compensation? That is the issue. Then you may talk about the issue of maybe the police reforms that are also going to be part of the recommendation from this panel. Those may be left for the federal government to handle because they are in charge of the police and its formations, But when it comes to the issues of compensation, quick fix, even prosecution of those that may be indicted, these are all on the table of the state governments. They have the Attorney General of the states who has the responsibility to prosecute anybody who has been found wanting to have committed any crime. So to that extent, the state government has equal burden, of governance to ensure that the recommendations of this panel are implemented to the letter, so that the people will have a sense of belonging. They will know that all those who lost their life during the ENDSARS protest, all those who were maimed and injured, will not have any cause of regret or worry. And if these things are not taken into consideration, we may just be calling for another rounds of protest.
Well, Evans,
let me just quickly let our viewers out there know that we have Comrade Kola Edokpai here. He's backstage. We're going to bring him in, not quite long from here, so that he can also bear his mind. He was part of the he's part of the panel. The panel is still sitting, so he's part of the panel. So we'll bring him soon so that he bear his mind on some of the issues. Now, pharmacist.
No, I was just trying to point out that it is not yet time to rush into that conclusion that the state government, especially as it relates to Edo, is not serious about the entire project. Because
that is the impression.
Okay, so they are giving an impression, and I still say it is untimely. It is not yet time to assume that, because I followed through with some of their deliberations when the panel was set up, and I know they were working very hard. They were even working from Monday to Friday every day for 5 days. And I also know at some point they raised issues of will they be able to complete their job within this stipulated time, because a lot of petitions were coming in. A lot of petitions were coming in. Some persons, there were a lot of issues. Some people didn't really know how to get their petitions through on time. They got to know that later, and they were bringing up. Then some people didn't even know that MBA was on ground there providing pro bono legal services to some of these petitioners. A lot of things, and they were just coming to grasp with a lot of things. And I am sure that may have also given vent to having to elongate the time. Where I will quarrel with a little bit is that these things are supposed to be made public, so that a lot of people will know that, look, we have extended the time. To me, the time added to it to complete the job may not even be so it may not matter so much now, provided a thorough job is done, and at the end of the day, our people are happy with what the panel has been able to achieve. Sometimes some of the things we observe is that there is no way you can turn back the hands of time. Some persons have been brutalized, injured. Some persons have been made. Some families have lost very important individuals. And there is nothing you can do but to just compensate them the way you can and allow them some breathing space.
Restitute them. That should be
restitute them, allow them happy. Because what our legal personnel pointed out was that yes, there should be that aspect whereby the state government will take up prosecution of some of these individuals who should be prosecuted, so that it will serve as a deterrent, it will serve as an example to others. And the government will also look at it as, look, the rights of the citizens is part of what they should be protecting when they are elected into power.
Okay. Now, Barrister, I think Johnson is on strike. I don't know. Nobody knows when the strike is going to be called off. He's on strike over financial autonomy. I'm just wondering, in my own little way, whether this is not going to impede on the ongoing panel of inquiry.
No, certainly not, because I like that dimension.
Now, we're talking about lawyers, talking about the judiciary.
It will not, because, for example, the chairman of the panel is a retired justice of the High Court of Edo State.
Okay.
And the membership of that panel are members from all walks of life. We have people who were members of the ENDSARS protesters.
Yeah, but there are some key members of the panel.
You have clergy.
Members of the judiciary.
You have clergy. No, not to my knowledge. You have members from the Ministry of Justice, who are lawyers, who are also members of that panel. Of course, members from the larger, echelon in society, from all walks of life, like I've mentioned, about 22 of them, these heads are members of that panel. So the strike in Jusun have nothing to do with the panel at all, because, like we said, this is a judicial panel of inquiry, and it's not the regular kind of courts. It has its own set rules, and it has a time frame, within which to deliver on the modus operandi. So they know what is at stake. They know that the society is looking at them. They cannot afford to delay further than they have already done. They must ensure that they do some house cleaning and bring about these urgent recommendations that the people are looking forward to, because the society are giving them this onerous task. They know that they can do it. That's why they gave them that responsibility. They must not also fail the people. They must ensure that no matter what, They must put their personal interest aside and do this job that they have been given to do. So at the end of the day, they would have etched their name in the sands of time, and society will reward them forever for standing up to be counted when it mattered most.
Okay. All right, viewers out there, the program is still this morning on ITV, and we're looking at the ENDSARS protest, 5 months down, and also seeing some of the expectations on the panel of inquiries across the country. Well, we'll quickly take a short pause now so that we'll just bring another guest in. We'll be right back. Please stay tuned.